Canada, a name that evokes images of pristine lakes, towering mountains, and a society that represents the gold standard of global stability. To the world, it is a haven of peace, a mosaic of cultures built on the promise of opportunity and the beauty of an endless wilderness. But beneath the surface of this international brand, a different story is beginning to emerge. A story of systemic pressure and local crises. From the crowded streets of Toronto to the melting permafrost of the Arctic, the version of Canada we were sold is undergoing a profound shift. This is the deep dive into the Canada no one talks about. The untold stories of a nation at its most critical tipping point. Chapter 1. The Housing Paradox. It is a crisis defined by a simple, brutal failure of mathematics and planning. For decades, the balance between arrivals and infrastructure was stable, but in recent years, that balance has completely fractured. In 2024, Canada's population surged past 41 million people. An unprecedented 97% of that growth came from international migration. We opened the doors wider than ever before, welcoming millions with the promise of a new start in a land that was ready for them. But while the arrivals spiked, the housing starts stalled. By 2023, the gap had become a canyon. We were inviting 5 people for every 1 home started. The math didn't add up. The supply could not keep pace with the demand, and the results began to manifest on our streets. In the Greater Toronto Area, wooded encampments have become a permanent fixture. These aren't traditional homeless camps. They are something new. They are shelters for a hidden population. Undocumented workers caught in a survivalist loop after their permits expired in the system. Experts estimate that by 2026, nearly 2 million people could be living in Canada without legal status. A massive population in the shadows. These are individuals who arrived with hope but now find themselves trapped in a legal and social maze with no clear exit. The human cost is deeply personal. Untold stories of abandonment and financial ruin are becoming the norm for many newcomers. Mothers arriving with spouses only to be left without support, navigating a complex legal system while saddled with debts they didn't create. The pressure reached a breaking point. In late 2024, the federal government announced a historic reversal of its immigration policies. Targets were slashed from 500,000 to 395,000. A desperate attempt to stabilize a system that was clearly failing to meet the basic needs of its residents. But even with these cuts, the challenge remains monumental. Millions of homes are still needed to restore any sense of affordability. Canada is at a crossroads. The promise of the mosaic is being tested by the reality of the supply gap. And this is only the first chapter. Chapter 2. The Melting Frontier. While the South struggles for space, the North is literally losing its ground. In the remote North, the change is not just social, it is physical. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. Permafrost, the frozen foundation upon which northern civilization is built, is thawing at an unprecedented and alarming rate. Infrastructure is failing. In communities like Iqaluit and Tuktoyaktuk, roads are buckling and buildings are literally cracking in half. The ground that has been frozen for millennia is giving way, and with it, the stability of entire communities is disappearing. The 2023 wildfire season was a catalyst, burning 15 million hectares and forcing the evacuation of entire towns like Yellowknife. It was a stark reminder of the fragility of the northern landscape and the logistics that keep its people alive. This is more than just environmental damage. It is ecological grief. The shifting patterns of wildlife are devastating traditional ways of life. Inuit residents are facing massive food insecurity as the shifting ice disrupts hunting cycles that have lasted for generations. The convergence of these pressures has manifested in a catastrophic mental health crisis, a silent epidemic across the North. Suicide rates among Inuit youth are 11 times the national average, a crisis of the spirit driven by the loss of land and hope. Between 2023 and 2024, multiple Indigenous governing bodies declared states of emergency, calling for urgent intervention. But the northern health system is threadbare, often leaving the most vulnerable without any access to resident care or support. The North is in withdrawal, from the ice, from the ground, and from the stability it once represented for its people. As the permafrost thaws, the truth about Canada's environmental fragility is being laid bare for the world to see. Chapter 3. The Subterranean Refuge. In Montreal, the social crisis has literally gone underground. This is the story of a futuristic marvel that has become a refuge for those displaced by the world above. The Réseau, 32 kilometers of pedestrian network connecting 80% of Montreal's downtown office space. Designed in 1962 as a commercial triumph, it was meant to shield residents from the brutal Canadian winters. But as the housing crisis intensified, the purpose of these tunnels began to shift from commerce to survival. The Réseau has become a last resort shelter for those who can no longer afford the world above the ground. 500,000 people pass through daily. The integrated metro system and these subterranean corridors now serve as an unofficial overflow unit for Montreal's shelter system. Between 2018 and 2022, the homeless population in Quebec doubled, and the Riso became their final refuge. But the refuge is now in crisis. Interventions related to drug use within the network have spiked by a staggering 166%. Overdoses in the metro more than doubled in just 1 year. The tunnels are becoming a front line in a battle for public safety. By early 2025, public sentiment shifted sharply. The government announced a safety blitz to reclaim the subterranean space. Security constables were instructed to remove anyone loitering or sleeping. The era of the Riso as a social refuge is ending. The Riso represents a profound societal withdrawal, a massive world beneath the sky where the crisis is hidden from view. But as the doors close and the patrols increase, the question remains: where will these people go next? As the safety blitz intensifies, social tensions are bubbling to the surface. The conflict between public safety and the need for shelter has no easy answers. Chapter 4. The systemic collapse. These aren't isolated events. They are connected in a circular, downward spiral. Protests are becoming a common sight in the streets above the Riso, a nation grappling with its own moral and logistical limits. The environmental collapse in the north drives more people toward the urban centers, searching for a stability that no longer exists. And the housing shortage in the south traps those already here, preventing any reverse migration to communities that are literally melting away. The Canada brand, the image of a stable, pristine, and welcoming haven, is reaching its ultimate breaking point. We are witnessing a nation in transition, a society grappling with the consequences of its own planning and environmental reality. The shocking truth is not one event, but a systemic failure of the version of Canada we were sold. It is urgent, and it is here. The real story of Canada is harder, darker, and more complex than the postcards suggest. It is time to look at the shadows. Stay awake. Follow for the untold stories of a nation at the center of a global storm. The truth is unblinkable. This was the Canada no one talks about. But it is the Canada we must all understand. This is just the beginning. Chapter 5. The future at a crossroads. Canada is at a point of no return. The choices made now will define the next century. Our energy and sustainability goals are clashing with the reality of resource extraction and a warming planet. An energy paradox in the land of water. We are trying to fuel a growing population while our primary resource, the land itself, is in a state of unprecedented withdrawal. Public trust is eroding. For the first time in generations, more Canadians believe the country is moving in the wrong direction than the right. The dream of homeownership, once the bedrock of the Canadian middle class, is slipping out of reach for an entire generation. But in the face of collapse, there is resilience. Local communities are stepping in where the system has failed, building their own networks of support. From the north to the south, the people of Canada are fighting to preserve their identity and their future, even as the ground thaws beneath them. The shocking truth of Canada is not a single event. It is a collective awakening to a reality that can no longer be ignored. It is a call to look beyond the brand and see the nation for what it truly is, a work in progress, facing its most brutal test. The world is watching, and Canada is at the center of the storm. Stay awake, because the truth is unblinkable. This was the hidden life no one talks about. This is Canada. Follow for the untold truths. This is just the beginning.